This is the I Was a Wheelchair Kid podcast. It's true stories of people who grew up using wheelchairs after being paralyzed and how they figured out their lives. I'm your host, Pete Anziano, and I've been using a wheelchair myself for almost 20 years. Although I wasn't injured as a child, I've spent those 20 years in a job where I help people of all ages adjust to living with paralysis. And I have learned that being injured as a kid brings a whole different set of problems. These podcasts are the personal stories about how kids went about finding their own solutions as children. They're adults now, but their childhood memories are powerful. In this episode, Angela tells her story. She was a 15-year-old freshman and a member of her high school swim team, and the season had just begun.
I was new to competitive swimming, and this was the first away meet of the year that was not in the swimming pool that my high school used as our home pool. So I dove off the starting blocks into the shallow end. I hit my head on the bottom. I knew immediately that I wasn't able to move and was kind of like floundering, had started to go down to the bottom of the pool, and my swim teammates noticed. They were swimmers, so they were lifeguard trained. There was an athletic trainer at the meet, and so I was very lucky that I had people who knew what they were doing, how to handle me, how not to move me, got me on a backboard quite quickly, and got me in an ambulance and took me to the local children's hospital pretty quickly. And I was admitted as an inpatient where I stayed for over 3 months. So I have a really supportive, close-knit family. My mom was there with me every day, took a leave of absence from her job. My dad came every night. And my sisters, they were in middle and elementary school at the time, but they were with me like on weekends and evenings and whenever they could. We also had a lot of great support from friends and like extended family.
But Angela had just begun her freshman year, and everyone was worried that her paralysis, her quadriplegia, might cause her to fall behind in school, including Angela.
So I am from a family that has always really valued education. My mom is a teacher. And so one of her first questions after spinal cord injury was, we can't let her get behind in school. So I started 3 classes. The hospital had a math tutor that worked with kids so that I could keep doing geometry. And then my history teacher and my English teacher, they started coming to the hospital because they didn't want me to get so behind in my classes, and I didn't want to be held back. There were definitely days where I was frustrated that I could barely stay awake because I'd done 2 sessions of OT, 2 sessions of PT, and rec therapy, because, when you're in rehab, it's so intense. There were days where I could barely stay awake. And then, they would be bringing me you got to read this and prepare for a discussion, or so-and-so's coming to the hospital. You got to be ready to work with them. But I do think they were pretty flexible with me to get me through the classes. And so as long as I felt okay, I didn't mind working with the tutors, but also the drag of oh gosh, I've done all this and now I still have to do homework.
But when she got back to high school, Angela discovered there was another skill she had to learn. It didn't involve homework, just a little bravery.
There were definitely moments where I felt left out, if I heard rumor went around, someone was having a party and you weren't invited. I remember my mom being you have got to speak up for yourself. If I would come home and complain, my mom was a big, you have got to speak up for yourself. No one else is going to do it. And so I feel like I got great training with where I did rehab about using your voice and speaking up for myself. Is this going to be accessible? learning to like, hey, don't forget about me. I'm part of this too. How easy is it going to be to get me in the house? Can we figure out a way so that I can be included too? And I actually have gotten feedback from people who, like peers of mine that don't, like non-disabled peers that don't have self-advocacy skills for themselves, feeling like that was something that was like a strength of my disability, because I always had to be like speaking up and like, hey, remember me.
And always, there was the big question about Angela's future. As a person with quadriplegia, would she be able to care for herself? Could she ever live on her own? She discovered the answers at an Easter Seals camp, 2 hours from home.
And when the opportunity first presented to myself, I did not want to go. I told my parents, I do not think that's for me. And it was my dad who said, if you want to go away to college, I think spending 6 days on your own is a great start. And that was why I said yes, because I did want to go away to college. And so it was one of the best decisions that I ever made. I initially went for a week, and that was the first time I was really going to be completely away from my family. And that was the first time I either had to figure out a way to do all my own care, or I had to accept help from camp counselors that I had just met. And so that was a great test for me to reach out and get comfortable with things I needed help with, and then also like learn to do some things for myself. And it was just a safe space. And though they trained all the camp counselors to do care, so like they were all students of like special education, therapeutic recreation, occupational therapy, nursing. And so they were people who had medical knowledge and training. So I actually ended up going away to college 6 hours from home. And I don't know that I would have felt confident to go that far away if I hadn't had some time away from home at this Easter Seals camp.
As someone living with a spinal cord injury, what kind of work could she expect to do? What kind of career might be ahead? Could she find work that she loved?
My dad was really instrumental in being a model of somebody where his job was his career and he truly enjoyed going to work. And I just remember saying as a child, when he would talk about his job, he would say, I really hope for all you girls, you find something that you love to do. And so I really value that, because I know not everybody is told that it's important to do something that you're really passionate about. I also needed to be able to support myself. Like that was the expectation. Expectations were never lowered for me because of my spinal cord injury. And so I am just really fortunate that those were set as realistic expectations for me, and that they never lowered the bar. I definitely was never discouraged from going towards something that involved a lot of school. When you have a spinal cord injury, you also have to think about what's realistic. And so I was very interested in like doing something in the medical field. And then I was also really interested in psychology, like mental health, social, emotional. I took a psychology class in high school. I really liked being a peer counselor. And then once I got to college, I really found myself enjoying the psychology way more than the biology and the chemistry. And so by the time like halfway through my sophomore year is when I dropped all the medical classes to focus on psychology. I felt like I really wanted to work with people as opposed to being like a researcher. And so that's when I decided to go for my degree in clinical psychology.
In the end, Angela earned a PhD in clinical psychology and today practices at a large medical center. She's married and recently built an accessible home. This episode was produced by Thea Flom, Stephanie Lolino, and Ann Hambleton. Directed and edited by Dan Lombardi, music by Cayman Kloss. And I'm your host, Pete Anziano. I Was a Wheelchair Kid is a joint project of FacingDisability.com and the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. It's funded in part by a grant from the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, and co-branded by the Model Systems Knowledge Translation Center. Grant directors are Dr. Alan Heineman and Dr. David Chen. You can find more Wheelchair Kid stories on FacingDisability.com/podcasts and on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.